What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. It is Friday morning. It is officially Halloween morning, and I was finally able to, once we got through all of the Field of 68 Media Day tours that we were doing, once we got through preparing for the opening day marathon and the three games that we're going to be calling in Sioux Falls. Goodman's going to be doing three with Randolph Childress down in Rock Hill starting at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. Once I was finally able to finish all of that prep and all of that, all of those shows and all of that content going out, I finally found a copy of the game film of Michigan State and UConn's exhibition where UConn won 76-69 and a very nice victory over the Michigan State Spartans, despite the fact that UConn was missing one guaranteed starter, one likely starter with Terrace Reed and Braylon Mullins out. So we're going to talk about all of that. It wasn't available on Synergy. I'm expecting the exhibitions to be available on Synergy. You got to go find YouTube streams. There was a very nice woman from, I believe it was Thailand, who in between posting photos of her hunting for mussels in Thailand, she posted all of the exhibition games in their full glory on YouTube, not just for UConn, for just about everybody else. So that was a little bit of an eye opener. I'm just thinking of Rick Pitino prepping for the season by watching UConn and Michigan State exhibition games, where the next video to pop up on YouTube is a young Thai woman looking for mussels in the ocean out there. So that was a little bit odd. I also wanted to talk about kind of the expectations that I have for the season, because I'm uncomfortably high on UConn heading into the year, which is not a place where I normally find myself. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to kind of break all of this stuff down. And I do want to talk about my thoughts on the upcoming season here. But first and foremost, I wanted to make sure that I got here and I got a chance to talk a little bit about and talk through my thoughts a little bit on what's happening with UConn after that exhibition. And I think my first and biggest takeaway out of anything else was I was impressed with the defense, man. Like I was impressed with the way that this team has been able to guard through their two exhibition games. I was worried that Eric Ryo was not going to be ready as a freshman coming in. I don't think that he had the best senior season that we've seen from a big man before. He was terrific leading up to his commitment to UConn, and it felt a little bit like, just talking to people that watched him up close, he might have taken his foot off the gas a little bit after he made that commitment. But I think he's been quietly really, really effective for the role that he's going to be asked to play this season. And I think, look, with the injury that Terrace Reed is currently dealing with, right? And whenever you have kind of a soft tissue thing, you never necessarily know if that's going to fully go away during the year. And given the fact that Terrace Reed has already shown that he can be a little bit foul prone, right? Making sure that you have a backup five man in this system that can protect the rim, that can rebound the ball, that can just go out there and like be 7 foot and 240 pounds and kind of get in the way, I think is a really, really, really important thing. And I thought he rebounded well against a team that is known for their ability to rebound and had a couple big guys. I thought he walled up well. And I thought that he showed signs of being capable as a pick and roll defender. I don't think he's ever going to be great as a pick and roll defender. I just don't think that that's who he is. I don't think that's how he's built. And like I said the other day, when you're a freshman, your life heading into college, the majority of it defensively is like be really tall and stand in front of the rim. And then you get there and you kind of have to learn, okay, now I have to move. Now I have to do these different reads. Now I have to be able to slide my feet here. Now I have to be able to get things going. I think that he's probably going to take a little bit of time there, but like that's natural. That's a freshman. Not everybody is going to come in and automatically be Donovan Clingan. Frankly, he wasn't even perfect during his freshman year. It took him a little while to get to that point. So, yeah, we'll see how that all kind of plays out with Eric Ryo, but I'm feeling pretty good about where he is. I said last episode though, the same thing. He was 2 for 6 on 2-pointers against Michigan State. He was 3 for 9 on 2-pointers against Boston College, he has to find a way to be able to finish through contact at the rim. That is going to be the single biggest thing with him. Part of it will be allowing teams to be able to get in foul trouble in the front court. Like we saw UConn get in foul trouble on Tuesday, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But he has to be able to finish through contact, whether it's to draw fouls, whether it's to score, whether it's to make sure those easy buckets end up being easy buckets instead of blown opportunities. So that was my single biggest takeaway was Eric Ryo looks like he's going to be able to impact at a higher level than I expected. I also thought Dwayne Caroma looked good again. A lot of fouls. Which is something that, like, look, they got to get that figured out, right? You can't have 34 fouls. You can't give up the number of free throws that UConn gave up to Michigan State. I think they put them on the line 44 times, which is, like, frankly, just an unacceptable number. Some of that was, I think, those John Gaffney and crew probably were calling it a little tighter than it needed to be. That game was kind of a slog to get through. But it is what it is. There's going to be games that get called like that during the season, and UConn has to find a way to be able to defend without fouling. That could end up being an Achilles heel that will be difficult for them to overcome. Because, I mean, the bottom line is this: Michigan State shot 39% from the floor. They shot 28% from three, and I do believe that UConn's ability to force you to miss shots, the ability to put you in the spot where you can force some turnovers, right? I think they had 12, Michigan State had 12 turnovers to just 6 assists. That UConn is really good at being able to force you to take tough shots. They have the positional size. They have some switchability, right? They're really good at that. But you can't let teams get to the free throw line and get easy points. 29 of Michigan State's 69 points came from the free throw line on Tuesday night. That's too many points. And I know it's Michigan State, and know it's tough, and know they're physical, but we saw some of those issues against Boston College as well. Figuring that out is going to be a key, as is figuring out the defensive glass, right? Look, a lot of that gets solved when you get Barris Reed in there. But they got to get on the glass, man. And being able to keep teams from getting second opportunities, like second opportunities and free throws, is what should be the big red flag. Like, that's going to be what I promise you what Dan Hurley is talking about over and over and over and over and over again in practice, in workouts, in drills, in film sessions. That's going to be the thing. You're giving up second chance points, and you're giving up free shots from the free throw line, and those are things that are those are the easiest ways for you to be able to lose games. I'll talk about Demery here in a second, but I think the other really big moment was Jaden Ross, right? He is a guy that, to me, and maybe I'm reading things a little bit too deeply here, but to me, he kind of has the green light to be able to get up shots from three, right? Like, he hasn't been good throughout his career. We've heard about him. We've seen the hype. You can kind of see it in flashes. But he hasn't been good because he hasn't found a way to be able to be consistent. And I think what we see out of him, I'll phrase it like this, right? When he is shooting open threes and they're going 6 feet over the rim and they're being fired off long, and he's throwing up jumpers from the wings that are going over and hitting on the other side of the backboard, I think part of it is he gets a little bit anxious. I think some of that is a little bit of a lack of confidence. And I think that I don't know if nervous is the right word, but it looks like he has nerves out there, and he's rushing, and he's kind of pushing, putting a little too much pressure on himself, trying to be able to get something going, right? Because I think he wants it really, really bad, and he is trying a little bit too hard, right? And I think what we saw on Tuesday night was him finally, like, kind of settling in. And there was a level of calmness, right? Like, he knocked down a couple of threes that looked just perfect in rhythm. He wasn't rushing it. There was a little bit of pressure on him, but he just took his time, and he stepped up and he swished a couple threes. And then once those went down, You saw him a little more aggressive going to the rim. You saw a couple of offensive rebounds that he was able to grab. He was making some plays defensively. I thought that um, he was much more active and much more confident and much more aggressive. And with Stewie, Stewie has not been great since the start of the season. And I think one of those two, especially with Braylon Mullins' absence, one of those two has to find a way to be able to step up. They just have to. And if it's not going to be Stewie, and even if it is, I do think that there's something to be said for the pressure that gets put on him because Jaden Ross is coming out here and playing better. And uh, to be frank, if you're looking at the schedule that UConn has, right, like BYU in Boston, probably a favorable UConn home crowd, but that is going to be a team that probably has the best top three. And I think you can make an argument the best players at three of the most important positions, right? I think Richie Saunders is probably going to be the best kind of big wing that you see on the floor, the best three man. I think that AJ DeBonta will be the best four that you have on the floor. That might not be debatable. And I think that it's an argument that you can make that Robert Wright will be the best point guard out there. And if you are playing that game and you don't have a guy that could be one of your best shooters, and you don't really have someone at the wing that can either guard DeBonta or Richie Saunders and chase him off of screens, then you're heading into that game with a significant disadvantage. And I mean, look, BYU is coached by a guy that has quite a bit of professional experience. They were really good last year, and they have a ton of talent this season. So that's not a game that you want to mess around with and risk. I think the same thing can be said about the Arizona game, right? I'm a little less convinced on Arizona this early in the season than a lot of people are, and that will get played in Gamble. But one thing that Arizona does have is elite point guard play and a lot of really effective positional size with a big guy in Mateus Krivas that is very, very good at erasing anything in and around the paint. So UConn is going to have somebody on the perimeter that is able to step up and make a play, because Arizona, I envision a lot of switching defenses and trying to take UConn out of what they want to do out of Tommy Lloyd. So really, really, really important that you get those guys in the three spot on those wing players to step up and be able to play a role. Illinois on the 28th. I think Braylon Mullins, I think the hope internally is to maybe get him back maybe as soon as Arizona. I think that's probably a little bit too early. What they mentioned was 6 weeks from the time of injury and the release, which, if I recall correctly, would have been right about when they play Florida at the Jimmy V. I would not be surprised if he wanted to be back to try to play at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, to play Kansas on the Friday night. The 28th is when you face off with Illinois. I mean, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of your biggest non-conference games that could look. If we're being honest, those are the games that are going to be the difference between UConn being a 1 seed and UConn being a 4 seed. You win 2 or 3 of those, and you got a really good chance to get a really good seed. You win all 5 of them, and you got a really good chance to end up being the number 1 overall seed in college basketball this season. You lose all 5 of them, and I just don't know how much ground you're going to be able to make up in the Big East this year without pulling off a sweep of St. John's. So incredibly, incredibly important portion of UConn's schedule right there, and making sure that there is a guy in that 3 spot that is doing exactly what Jaden Ross did on Tuesday night is incredibly important for the long-term chances of this team being able to find a way to win a national title, which is something I think that absolutely should be the goal for this group. So long-winded way of saying that was a really, really good thing to see Jaden Ross come in and start playing the way that he was playing. I was impressed with what I saw from solo ball. I have no doubt that he was 2 for 15 from 3 through the 2 exhibitions. There is no doubt in my mind that is a stat that is going to correct itself. I would be flabbergasted if he didn't end up being like a 42% 3-point shooter this season on 7 or 8 attempts per game. I keep shooting, don't stop shooting. To me, though, what was really, really important to see was the way that he was able to put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. There was one in the second half where The ball got swung to him. He squared somebody up. He drives to his left. He cuts back towards the middle, in the middle of the floor, and he's able to like switch hands in midair and finish with his right hand. He had a really nice and one going left in the first half. There was another one where he kind of got to his right hand and was able to draw a foul. I think he's still more of a straight line driver than he is a guy that is going to be able to just kind of square you up and dance with a little bit. Like he's not going to be what someone like Jace Richardson was last year, but he doesn't have to be. His jumper is so good that he can use the jumper to be what sets up the drive. All he has to do is be able to be a threat where if you close out long on him, if you sell out on that jump shot, he can beat you to the basket, he can beat you to the rim, and he can finish around the bucket while drawing a foul. And I think that is exactly what he has shown so far, and that nothing about anything that I've seen from him so far this season makes me believe he's not going to have a monster season. I think he might. I think he's probably going to end up being UConn's leading scorer. 17, 18 a game is something that is within the realm of possibility. And I would also say it looks like he is starting to be a little bit better on the defensive end. He's not perfect. He's hardly Gary Payton at this point, the glove. But I do think that there are some promising signs that we've seen out of him. So, look, frankly, somebody with his athleticism and the length of his arms needs to be an above average, if not an elite defender. So I think that you're seeing some promising signs there. Caravan was Caravan. Like he's so good, man. He understands how to play. That there's no better connector in the sport of college basketball. And the fact that there's enough talent on this roster to be able to make sure that he doesn't have to be more than a connective piece is part of why I'm very, very high on UConn this year. Thought we got a decent performance out of Silas Demery. Knocked down a couple of threes early. Had a couple plays where he was able to get to the basket the rest of the game, but he got in foul trouble early on, and it just seemed like it knocked him out of his rhythm. After dealing with a little bit of an injury early on, I think he's still just kind of trying to figure out his role and find his place within the way that this team plays. Not going to read too much into just an okay performance from the first exhibition. I'm still incredibly high on him. My take is still that when we get to March, when we get to the end of the season, everyone is going to realize that Silas Demery is the most important and best player on that UConn roster. He had one pass. It was about 11 minutes left in the second half, and it was nearing the end it was getting a little bit late in the shot clock, and he was able to make a move past someone, and he drove down from the top of the key down like the right side of the lane, and he elevates, and his momentum carries him out of bounds. And as the momentum carries him out of bounds, he's looking at the pass in the corner, and there's a weak side guy that is kind of in the middle of the opposite side wing and the opposite side corner. And so when momentum carries him out of bounds, he's looking at the guy in the corner. The help side defender moves, and as he's moving, he makes a no-look pass to, I believe it was Solo Ball on the wing. And then Solo Ball swings it to the top of the key. They swing it to the other side of the floor, and it eventually ended up with a wide open three from, I believe it was Alex Caravan that knocked down the three. And it was just, that is the kind of pass that when you see a player make a pass like that, it makes you stand up and say, okay, he gets it. He understands the reads. He can make those plays. Stuff like that a little bit more consistently will be nice, and I fully expect that to be showing up a little bit more throughout the season. That's more or less all I have from that game. I don't think that there was anything too surprising, anything too worrisome beyond the fouls and the issues with offensive rebounds. Jaden Ross and Jalen Stewart. With Braylon Mullins out, it looks like Braylon Mullins might have earned that starting spot at the three. With Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross stepping up, I think that is going to end up being the thing that gives this team a very real ceiling. UConn now 2-0 in exhibitions before the real season starts. We haven't seen Harris Reed yet. We haven't seen the best of Silas Demery yet, and they have basically 2 weeks now and 3 games against teams that they should absolutely roll to allow those two to kind of get into a rhythm, figure things out, and get us ready for BYU, Arizona, Illinois, Kansas, and the meat of this non-conference schedule. As you know by now, we have teamed up with BetMGM again this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we will have special offers for Field of 68 fans, including same-game parlays, best-in-class live betting, and daily odds boost. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD to get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. You download the BetMGM app, you sign up using bonus code FIELD, you deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Make this college basketball season one for the history books. Make it legendary. And don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code FIELD and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. The college basketball season will begin right here on the Field of 68. At 8 a.m. on November 3rd, we will be tipping off the inaugural Field of 68 opening day marathon. 15 hours of non-stop basketball. It will begin in Rock Hill, presented by our friends at Visit York County. Plan your itinerary today at visityorkcounty.com. Winthrop will face off with Queens in the opener, followed by Bradley taking on St. Bonaventure. Then we head out to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where it'll be presented by Sanford Sports, who is changing the way people play and making sports accessible and fun for all. Murray State gets Omaha at 1 p.m. Eastern time, with Drake taking on Northern Arizona in the second game in Sioux Falls. Then it's back to Rock Hill for a showdown between Furman and High Point, with Merrimack taking on South Dakota State in Sioux Falls in the nightcap. Tickets for all 6 games are on sale now at the links in the description below. Field of 68 opening day. We all know the Players Era Festival has become the best field in all of college basketball, and you have the opportunity to win a VIP trip to the Players Era Festival in Las Vegas thanks to our partners over at BetMGM. Here's how it works. Opt into the contest and start placing bets on any sport of at least $10 with plus 100 odds or greater. When you do that, you earn leaderboard points based on the bet's odds and the amount that you wager. The more you bet, the higher the odds, the more points that you earn. The top players in that contest are going to win a prize package that includes tickets to the games, withdrawable funds for travel, a 4-night stay at the luxurious Mandalay Bay here in Las Vegas, and more. For the full list of prizes, look in the description below. Make the tournament legendary with BetMGM. Vegas is calling. You gonna answer? There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. I teased it a little bit earlier. You know, I've always been the kind of fan that is a little bit pessimistic when it comes to the season starting. I don't know if that's just because I don't like feeling overconfident. I don't know if that's just because I want to jinx stuff. But I've never been the type to say like, oh yeah, they're rolling through the season. Oh yeah, this team looks great. Oh yeah, this group heading into the year, I think they have a chance to roll through and put together a fantastic season again. I had UConn ranked really high last year, and I remember saying on this very podcast, I have them this high because I trust Dan Hurley to find a way to figure this out, even if it's very easy to see where some of the flaws in this roster lie. Heading into the 23-24 season, I remember saying, like, I don't know if this team is going to be good enough defensively. I don't know how the playmaking is going to all come together, and that looked a little bit silly. I was definitely questioning what was happening heading into the 22-23 season because of the number of departures that they had. But I look at this roster and I look at this team and I look at what they've done early on in this exhibition season, and I quietly feel uncomfortably good about where this team is right now and where this team can be this season. I think that there is a level of play in the backcourt that we have not seen since Tristan Newton left. I think Solo Ball is ready to step into a monster year. Um, I mean, this is me betting on Terrace Reed being the best of himself more often than not, and betting on Silas Demery stepping in and being who he was over the course of the last 6 weeks of last season. And I fully believe that that's going to be the case. Um, I feel very, very good about where this team is and what they can end up being this season. And the fact that Purdue has looked like they've struggled a little bit, and Kentucky looks like they're struggling a little bit, and Houston's got some freshmen in the mix there, and Florida. All due respect to Florida and Todd Golden, but they're getting a little bit, in my opinion, of the UConn treatment from last year because I don't think we're. Uh, I don't think that we're valuing how much they lost in their perimeter properly, right? Walter Clayton was a first round pick and one of the best shot makers we've seen in college basketball in decades. Will Richard graduated and immediately became a rotation piece, getting real NBA minutes for the Warriors this year. Elijah Martin is a pro. Richard and Martin were two big, physical, grown ass men that were terrific defensively. And Boogie Fland is a sensational talent and a lot of fun to watch, but he ain't Walter Clayton. And Xavier Lee is a guy that was one of the most fun and entertaining mid-major players in the country, and a guy that I think will have an impact at the SEC level, but is not a guy that I think is going to be able to come in and replicate what Walter Clayton or Elijah Martin did. Um, I'm I'm wondering if maybe we have undervalued the lack of a superstar that Kentucky has. So I just, there's a lot of other teams that have question marks. And not saying that UConn doesn't have question marks, but watching the way that they've played through these two games and seeing what Solo's turned into and seeing how Caravan's playing, I feel really, really good about where they are. And it's not a comfortable feeling for me to feel really, really good about where a program is or where a team that I enjoy is heading into the season. If there was a key, if there was something that I think could be the thing that derails this group, it is quite simply the fouls and the offensive rebounds, because I think everything else is going to end up coming together, right? The fact that Solo is able to play off the bounce a little bit more and be more of a less of a one-dimensional player, I think is something that is critical for this team. If this is the Jaden Ross that we're going to, and it's a big if, but if this is the Jaden Ross that we're going to get, it gives UConn a completely different dynamic, because he probably is their best perimeter defender, best wing defender, I'll say, because of his size and length and athleticism. And if he can, at the very least, like, just be a 38% three-point shooter, the rest of the stuff will come. But if you're making 30% of your open, or 38% of your open threes, Jayden, like, you're going to end up being a guy that plays 20 to 25 minutes a game, and you might even move up past Sioux, who also, might be the best guy when it comes to being able to just kind of go make a play out there and go score outside of Silas Demery. I think that those guys are going to be huge, and it looks like they've taken a step forward. And the other part of it is Eric Ryo. Eric Ryo looks like he's really, really impactful here. So I don't like how comfortable I'm feeling about this. I hate the fact that I am saying this at the same time as I've made the decision that my wife and I have made the decision that we're going to bring our kids out to the Final Four for the first time to experience it. And all of those things coming together, like, I feel like I'm jinxing this team. I feel like I'm jinxing this season. And the fact that Terrace Reed's already dealing with injuries and Braylon Mullins just sprained his ankle doesn't make me feel any better about the fact that I've put the curse on this group. But I really do believe that this is. I remember a couple years ago, after they won the first title, that Dan was talking about the formula, right? We figured out the formula. We figured out the way to be able to win. We figured out what it takes to be able to make it work in the portal era. And the key I don't know if this is necessarily what he meant, but the key to being able to win at this point in time is being able to have a level of retention that is somewhere around the neighborhood of like 50% of your rotation. You get 4 or 5 key players back, and you got a very real chance to make a significant amount of noise, right? Especially if the guys that you're bringing back are good players. Well, Terrace Reed, preseason first team all conference. Solo Ball, preseason first team all conference. Alex Caravan, preseason first team all conference. Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross. Those are 3 all league guys and 2 critical role players that are coming back to the program. They've supplemented that with a freshman in Braylon Mullins that should excel in playing a very specific role, and a freshman in Eric Ryo that should excel in playing a very specific role, and a transfer in Malachi Smith that should excel at playing a very specific role. And they went out and also spent big money on a guy to be the star in a role that they were missing last season in Silas Demery. So returnees that are going to be all conference caliber players, one stud transfer coming in with a couple of freshmen and a couple of transfers to do a very specific job within the program and within the system is the way to make it work. That's how Florida won the title last year. That's what Auburn was able to do to be able to get themselves to win the SEC and make a Final Four. It was a little less with the freshmen and the transfers coming in and more when it comes to rotation, but that's kind of continuity and retention is the stalwart of what makes Houston basketball. So, I mean, we'll see, man. But when you have 5 guys on your roster that are nominated for awards at the end of the season, the positional awards, when you have 3 guys on your roster that are first team preseason all conference in a league as good as the Big East, with a team as good as St. John's in that league as well. And when one of the guys that was not named preseason first team all conference in Silas Demery has a very real chance to be the best player on that team, like there's a lot there that makes me feel really good about this group. Now, what I'll say is when you look back at the 23 title team and the 24 title team, the lack of creativity offensively, right? There were 2 creators those 2 years. This year, I think there's really only going to be one. I can't see Demery and Smith playing too many minutes together. A little bit of a red flag. Lots of fouls, lots of offensive rebounds, which is not something that was a staple, shall we say, of a Dan Hurley program, literally ever. And the lack of surefire NBA talent. Jordan Hawkins was a lottery pick. Andre Jackson was a first round caliber pick that ended up being a second round guy that got a guaranteed deal, right? Adama Sanogo has been in and out of the NBA for a couple years. Donovan Clingan, number 7 pick. Steph Castle, number 4 pick. Cam Spencer, NBA role player, rotation player. Tristan Newton is 2-time All-American, or an All-American as a senior year, 2-time champion, 2024 NCAA tournament most outstanding player, and a guy that was a second round pick and is hanging around NBA rosters, right? Lots and lots of NBA guys on those teams. Caravan is probably a second round pick guy. I don't think Demery's a first round pick. I think he's an NBA guy, but I don't think he's a first round pick. Braylon Mullins is getting a little bit of hype right now, but I kind of need to see it from him to fully buy him as a potential first round one and done kind of a talent. Jaden Ross, maybe because of his athleticism. Solo Ball should be really, really good, but as a 6-foot scorer that isn't a great defender, like, you got to be so damn good at that role to be able to make it work for you in the NBA. So we'll see. That's the little bit of the concern that I have is you don't have that high end level of elite talent, but I don't know if you necessarily need that if the guys that you have are all exceptional college basketball players. So we'll see how that ends up playing out, but I feel very, very good about where this team is. I feel very, very good about this season. And I'm getting more excited by the day for the fact that in November and in December, we have 5 games that are like circle must watch, not just from a UConn fan perspective, but from a national college basketball perspective. Everyone's going to tune in to see UConn play BYU. Everyone's going to tune in to see him play Illinois. Everyone's going to tune in to see him play Kansas. Everyone on the planet is going to watch the last two national champions face off at the Jimmy V Classic, and having Arizona walk into Gampel Pavilion on a Wednesday night in November is the kind of thing that will cut through the noise of football season. So fired up, man. Season's here. Not going to spend any time previewing what's happening with the New Haven game, because if UConn cannot handle New Haven in an extremely comfortable manner, I may just put an end to this podcast. So we'll see what ends up happening. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait for this year. I can't wait to jump back on here when I have access to these games on Synergy, to be able to watch them, watch film, and react to them. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me here. And we will see you, I guess, probably middle of next week. We're on Monday morning. I should mention this and should promote this. On Monday morning, we will be doing the opening day marathon on the Field of 68. So that'll start at 8 a.m. on Monday. Winthrop and Queens and Rock Hill, St. Bonaventure and Bradley and Rock Hill at 11. Then we're going to head to Sioux Falls, where I am going to be. We'll have Omaha facing off with Murray State. We will have Drake facing off with Northern Arizona. Then we're heading back to Rock Hill for what I think is one of the best matchups on the first day of the season, where Furman will take on High Point, two teams that very well could end up being champions and contenders to win a game in the NCAA tournament this year, before we head back up to Sioux Falls. The last game of the night for me will be South Dakota State and Merrimack from the Pentagon in Sioux Falls, South Carolina. So that's what we got. That's what we're working with here. And I can't wait, man. The season's here. We're ready to go. I'm fired up. Roll skis.